Hello, and welcome to the Cognitive Catalog, the podcast where we open up the hood of the human brain and gently poke around with a stick, just to see what weird noises it makes. I'm your host, Julian Vance, and I'll be your guide through the labyrinth of your own mind. My job here is to provide a map for that labyrinth, though I must admit, some of the corridors I've found aren't in any official textbook. They seem to have been drawn in crayon, probably by a squirrel with a mild anxiety disorder. Today's topic is one that is incredibly near and dear to my heart, mostly because I believe I experience every single facet of it about 40 times a day. We're talking about the little glitches in the matrix of our own brains, the undocumented features, the psychological phenomena that don't have a proper name but absolutely unequivocally should. These are the behaviors that wouldn't land you in a clinical psychologist's office, but they might get you a few strange looks in the grocery store. They exist in that fascinating gray area between perfectly normal and should we be concerned about Julian? And let me tell you, people have been concerned. We've all been there, in that moment of profound, unexplainable weirdness. For instance, and this is a classic that happened to me just yesterday, the absolute unwavering certainty you feel when you push on a door that clearly, obviously, and in large friendly letters says pull. I pushed it once, and it didn't budge. So what did my brilliant, university-educated brain tell me to do? Of course, it told me to push it again, but harder, with more conviction this time, as if the door were merely testing my resolve. It's this brief, shining moment of supreme idiocy. You stand there, shoulder pressed against the unmoving wood or glass, utterly convinced that the laws of physics and the clear instructions of the English language have temporarily bent to your will. What is that? There simply must be a name for that specific brand of foolishness.
In clinical terms, I suppose you could loosely connect it to a form of cognitive dissonance, where my belief, I am a person who knows how to open doors, clashed with the reality. This door is defying my godlike push. But that's so dry. It lacks the flavor, the specific texture of the moment. We need something better. Something that captures that unique blend of misplaced confidence and dawning confusion. I've decided to call it kinetocognitive dissonance. Kineto for movement, cognitive for thought, and dissonance for the spectacular failure of the two to cooperate.
So I stood there, suffering from a severe case of kinetocognitive dissonance, accompanied by its primary symptom, muttering under my breath, "Stupid door." The only prescription I've found is to take a deep breath, look around to see if anyone noticed, and then meekly try the other thing. This is the entire premise for our show today. I am going to build a new diagnostic manual. We can call it the JDM-1. The Julian Diagnostic Manual of Minor Human Oddities. And we're going to do it with the sentence and no more point, just a flowing conversation, albeit with myself, about the beautiful, glorious mess inside all of our skulls.
So, where should we go from here? We've done doors. What's another universal source of these strange mental hiccups? Oh, I know, social interactions, specifically the end of them. Imagine this, you've just had a lovely, unexpected chat with an acquaintance in the park. You both say your goodbyes. It was great to see you. You too, take care. And then you both turn and begin walking in the exact same direction. The horror. The sheer, unadulterated awkwardness of that moment is a palpable force. It's a social black hole, sucking in all the pleasantness of the preceding conversation. The friendly goodbye you just exchanged has been exposed as a lie. You are not, in fact, leaving each other. You are now embarking on a silent, mutually agreed upon hostage walk. What do? Do you restart the conversation? That feels desperate. Do you speed up and overtake them like you're in a race? Aggressive. Do you fake a phone call with such urgency that it implies a national emergency? Yes, Mr. President, I'm on my way to the rendezvous point now. The internal monologue during this walk is a psychological thesis in itself. Okay, Julian, act natural, just walk, don't look at them. Oh God, I just looked at them. They saw me look. Now they know that they know. Should I comment on it? Ha, fancy seeing you here. No, that's insane. We just said goodbye. Maybe I can feign a sudden, intense interest in that particular fire hydrant over there. Yes, what a fascinating piece of civic engineering. It's a silent, desperate negotiation of personal space and broken social contracts. It's a complete system failure. So, what is the official diagnosis from my new manual for this condition? This requires a term that conveys the unintentional extension of a concluded social event. I've settled on post-ado prolongation syndrome. PAPS for short. I had a terrible flare-up of PAPS last month after running into my old boss at the coffee shop. We had a 10-minute silent walk towards the same office building. I think I needed a lie-down afterwards. The primary symptoms of PAPS are a sudden increase in heart rate, a severe aversion to eye contact, and an overwhelming desire for the earth to open up and swallow you whole. It's often comorbid with what I call forced interest observation, which is, of course, the fire hydrant phenomenon.
This is brilliant, if I do say so myself. Let's stick with social interactions. What about the classic restaurant blunder? The waiter brings you your food and says, with a pleasant smile, "Enjoy your meal." And your brain, on complete autopilot, with no filter between thought and speech, replies with unthinking sincerity, "You too."
I have diagnosed this as a reciprocal service fallacy. It's a truly fascinating glitch. The script in your head is so deeply ingrained. Someone says a pleasantry, you return it. Have a good day. You too. How are you? Fine. You too. Your brain just grabs the "you too" macro and runs it without checking the context for bugs. And the moment it leaves your lips, time slows down. You can see the words hang in the air between you and the waiter. You see the flicker of confusion in their eyes before their years of customer service training kick in, and they give you that tight, professional smile. They are, in fact, not going back to the kitchen to enjoy an identical plate of chicken parmesan. They are going to serve another table.
And you're left there with your pasta and a heaping side of shame. For the next 10 minutes, you can't even enjoy the meal because you're replaying that moment. Why did I say that? He must think I'm a complete idiot. I can never come back to this restaurant. I may have to move to a new city. But reciprocal service fallacy is a bit sane. It needs more pizzazz for my manual. How about echoic empathy disorder? You're so intensely empathetic, you genuinely want them to enjoy a meal too, even if it makes no logical sense in that context. That sounds nicer. It reframes my foolishness as a kind of hyper-politeness. It's not a mistake, it's an excess of kindness. Another term I was toying with is automatic affability reflux. It's a pleasantry that just comes up involuntarily like a social hiccup. Reflux has that slightly unpleasant medical feel to it that I love. I'm so sorry for my outburst. I suffer from a very bad case of AAR. It sounds serious. It sounds like something you should get a medical alert bracelet for. In case of social interaction, please be aware this patient may wish you to enjoy their own meal. Do not be alarmed. Let's move from the social world to the purely cognitive, the internal stuff. This next one happens to me constantly, especially now that I'm, well, not 20 anymore. I'll be in the middle of telling what I believe is a great story. I have my audience, which is often just my cat, captivated. I'm building to the punchline, and right as I'm about to say the key word, the name of the actor, the title of the book, the specific type of cheese that was so central to the anecdote, it vanishes.
Not just gone, but aggressively gone. It feels like a little librarian in my head has just run over to the card catalog, pulled out the specific card I need, and set it on fire right in front of my face. And I'm left standing there, mouth agape, making a sound that is all too familiar to many of us. A sound like, wait, what is it? The dreaded That is the sound of your brain buffering. That is the verbal equivalent of the spinning rainbow wheel of death on a Mac. Everyone is just staring at you, waiting for the program to respond, but it has crashed, and it's not sending a report to Apple. It's so frustrating because I know the word. I can feel its shape. I know it starts with a B. I know it has 3 syllables. I can almost taste it, but it's locked behind a door and the key has dissolved. The official term is lethologica, or the tip of the tongue phenomenon, but that's for scientists. What do we call the actual experience? The verbal stalling, the frantic gesticulating, the pained expression on your face? That whole performance deserves its own name. This isn't just about the word being missing, it's about the catastrophic social and narrative collapse that occurs in its absence.
The story's momentum is dead. The captivating spell is broken. Everyone is now just feeling sorry for you. I propose we call this specific event acute thematic evaporation. The entire theme of your sentence has simply evaporated into the ether, leaving behind a confusing mist of ums and ahs. He was in the middle of a brilliant point about geopolitical trade policy, and then he was struck down by a sudden, vicious bout of acute thematic evaporation. We lost him. The is the primary vocal symptom. It's the siren call of a brain in distress. It's a fascinating sound, really. It's a placeholder. It's a request for patience. It's a confession of failure. It's a plea to the universe to please just drop the word back into my head. And the worst part is when someone tries to help. Was it Brad Pitt? No. Chris Pratt? No. Chris Pine? No, stop saying people named Chris. You're polluting the search algorithm in my brain. That, I've decided, is a secondary condition we could call interventional mnemonic corruption. When an outsider's well-meaning but incorrect suggestions actively make it harder for you to retrieve the memory yourself. They're just overwriting your corrupted file with more corrupted files. This is a deep rabbit hole of dysfunction, and I'm here for it. Okay, here's a related one. It's not about forgetting a word. It's about being asked a question so simple, so fundamentally basic, that your brain treats it as a trick and completely shuts down. The other day, a barista asked for my name to write on the coffee cup. I have had this name, Julian, for my entire life. I use it every day. It's a fact I am generally confident about. But in that moment, for a solid 3 seconds, my mind was a serene, empty void. I had nothing. I just stared at her, and my brain was screaming 1,000 paranoid questions at me. What's the catch? Is Julian a trick name? Is she an FBI agent? Am I a sleeper agent, and Julian is just my cover name? What is my real name? The conspiracy theorist in my limbic system completely took over. I eventually managed to stammer out, Julian? Like it was a question, like I was asking her for confirmation of my own identity. The look she gave me was one of deep, deep concern. This is a magnificent phenomenon. It's the paradox of simplicity. The task is so easy that your brain's threat detection system flags it as suspicious. There's no way it's that straightforward. This must be a trap. I call this simplicity-induced cognitive paralysis, SICP for short. I think I have a chronic case. It happens every time someone asks me what I did over the weekend. My mind goes completely blank. Did I do anything? Have I ever done anything? What even is a weekend? I become a being who simply exists in a timeless, eventless state. That's the classic presentation of SICP. The brain purges all recent memory in the face of a low-stakes social inquiry. The cure, it seems, is to have a pre-prepared generic answer. Oh, just relaxed, bit of this, bit of that. That phrase is the verbal equivalent of a smoke bomb, allowing you to escape the question without having to access your frozen internal hard drive. It's the universal antidote to SICP. It means, I cannot recall a single detail of the last 48 hours. Please, for the love of all that is holy, let's move on. Let's pivot for a moment to another area ripe for this kind of pseudo-diagnosis, our relationship with inanimate objects. I'm sure you know what I mean. The pleading with your laptop. Come on, baby, please, just turn on. You can do it. I believe in you. I'll buy you a new mouse pad. Just please, work. That's the act of anthropomorphizing technology, especially when it's failing. We don't just see it as a broken machine. We see its failure as a personal betrayal. It's not malfunctioning. It's being stubborn. It's not crashing. It's having a tantrum. My printer, for example, is the most malevolent, spiteful entity in my home. It doesn't just run out of ink. It waits. It waits until I have to print a crucial, time-sensitive document like concert tickets or a legal form I need to mail immediately. It will print the first page perfectly, lulling me into a false sense of security. And then, on the final, most important page, it will just print 3 faint magenta streaks and make a series of grinding noises that sound suspiciously like it's laughing at me. This perceived malevolence of technology is a powerful, universal experience. We imbue these collections of plastic and silicon with intent, with personality, and almost always with malice. The diagnosis here is clear in my manual: inanimate contempt syndrome. It's the conviction that an object not only doesn't work, but that it's actively working against you out of sheer, unadulterated spite. My printer definitely has ICS. It probably conspires with my toaster, which has a setting that goes directly from pleasantly golden to charred briquette of sorrow with no discernible in-between. They're in it together, I'm sure of it. This belief in a coordinated conspiracy among your household appliances is a classic sign. But there's a flip side to this, isn't there? It's not always contempt. Sometimes it's affection. Like patting the dashboard of your car and saying, "Good job, old friend," after a long trip, or naming your sourdough starter, or talking to your plants. This isn't a delusion. You know the car can't hear you, but you do it anyway. It's a form of emotional bonding with the non-sentient. Let's call it object-oriented affection disorder. I don't mean disorder in a bad way, but in the sense that it's a deviation from purely logical, robotic behavior. I have a favorite coffee mug. If someone else in my house uses it, I feel a genuine pang of, jealousy? Betrayal? It's my mug. It understands me. It holds the coffee at the right temperature for the right amount of time. The other mugs in the cupboard are just mugs. They're imposters. This establishment of a primary object within a category of otherwise identical objects speaks to our deep-seated need for familiarity, for ritual, for connection, even if we have to project that connection onto a piece of ceramic. My brain has imbued that mug with special properties that exist only in my perception. It just feels better. And isn't that a kind of science? The science of me. This makes me think of something I wanted to be sure to touch on: the word laugh. It feels like such a simple thing, but it's not, is it? Laughter is one of the most complex, nuanced, and socially critical vocalizations we have. It's a vast spectrum. A true, involuntary, deep belly laugh, the kind that makes you cry and unable to breathe, is a neurological phenomenon all its own. In my catalog, I'm calling that a gelastic cascade, from the Greek gelos for laugh. I had one last week watching a video of a cat falling off a chair in slow motion. I couldn't stop. My abs genuinely hurt the next day. But that's the rare, pure stuff, the diamond of laughter. What about the other 99% of laughs? What about the one you do when your boss tells a joke that isn't funny at all? I call that the hierarchical appeasement laugh. It's a specific sound. It's a little too loud, it's a little too short, it's often accompanied by a sharp nod of the head and a, "Ha ha, that's a good one, sir." It's not a laugh, it's a career move. It's a form of social grooming. You're signaling, "I recognize your authority, and I am not a threat." Your attempt at humor was successful in my eyes, thus validating your status. It's a purely political act disguised as mirth. Then there's the laugh you do when you're in a conversation and you didn't quite hear what the other person said, but the context clues and their facial expression suggest they just said something amusing. You can't ask them to repeat it for the third time, so you just have to commit. You have to gamble. I call this the auditory ambiguity gamble. You deploy a generic mid-level chuckle. It's a risky maneuver. 90% of the time it works, but that 10% of the time when they weren't telling a joke, but were actually telling you their dog just died, well, that's a catastrophic failure. Your heh is met with a look of stunned horror, and now you have to backtrack so fast you get social whiplash. Oh no, I meant heh, what a world, not heh, your dead dog is hilarious. It's a nightmare from which there is no easy escape. What about the nervous laugh? The one you do when you're uncomfortable or anxious. You're in a tense meeting or you've just done something embarrassing and this little giggle just escapes you. This is a fascinating one. It's a displacement behavior. Your brain is overloaded with a negative emotion, anxiety, fear, shame, and it doesn't know what to do with that energy, so it vents it through a seemingly inappropriate channel, laughter. I've diagnosed this as anxious mirth ejection. It's like a pressure release valve for the psyche. I get that when I see someone fall over in public. I don't think it's funny. I feel terrible for them. But this little bark of a laugh jumps out before I can stop it. And then I feel like the world's biggest monster. It's the conflict. Your empathy is fighting with a primitive part of your brain that responds to unexpected, non-threatening disruptions with a surprise laugh reflex. The anxious mirth ejection is the sound of that internal battle. Finally, one more laugh. What about the one that's pure, unadulterated sarcasm? The single, sharp ha that means, "I find your statement to be utterly and completely ridiculous." I call this the monosyllabic incredulity bark. It's less a laugh and more a punctuation mark. It's the verbal equivalent of a single raised eyebrow. It conveys a world of meaning in one tiny sound. You think you're going to finish that entire report by noon? Ha! It's an incredibly efficient form of communication. It signals disagreement, disdain, and a complete lack of faith all in under half a second. It's the apex predator of laughs. You know, I think it's time we took a short break. Before I dive even deeper into our shared psychosis, I have to pay the bills, and our sponsor today could not be more fitting.
Are you tired of conversations that just keep going? Do you suffer from chronic post-adieu prolongation syndrome? Have you found yourself discussing the weather with a coworker for the third time while walking to the same parking garage? Don't let awkward silences ruin your day. Introducing the Conversation Ender, the revolutionary new social aerosol from Cognito Corp. That's right. The Conversation Ender is a discreet, pocket-sized device. When a social interaction has run its natural course, but the physical proximity continues, simply press the button. The device emits a highly realistic, but not too alarming, pre-recorded sound. Choose from a variety of settings. Sudden onset of bees is a fan favorite, or try distant, unspecified emergency siren for a quick and plausible exit. For more intimate settings, there's the, "Oh, is that my phone?" ultra-realistic ringtone setting. Never again be trapped in a verbal cul-de-sac. Just a quick spray of "my car alarm, I think," and you're free. The conversation ender, because every conversation deserves a conclusion. Side effects may include minor confusion, abrupt cessation of small talk, and the sudden urge to check for bees. CognitoCorp is not responsible for friendships ended by overuse of the vague smell of smoke setting.
And we're back to the cognitive catalog, where I am single-handedly cataloging the quirks that make us human. Before the break, we were deep in the world of laughter, but I want to return to that moment of brain freeze we talked about earlier, the of it all. There's a specific flavor of this I need to diagnose. You walk into a room. You are there for a reason. You had a purpose, a clear, defined mission. Get the keys. Grab the book. Find the scissors. The moment your feet cross the threshold of the doorway, the mission is wiped from your mind, completely. You're left standing in the middle of the room like a freshly rebooted robot. You look around. The room is familiar, but your purpose within it is a total mystery. You can almost hear the dial-up modem sound in your head as your brain tries to reconnect to its previous intention. What is that? Well, there is a real psychological explanation for this one called the location updating effect or the doorway effect. The theory is that our brains compartmentalize information based on location. When you pass through a doorway, your brain closes the file on the previous room and opens a new one for the new room. Sometimes the intention you formed in the old room doesn't get carried over. It's a mental refresh that's a little too effective. It's a feature, not a bug. My brain is just being super organized by throwing out important information.
But the doorway effect is too bland for my catalog. This feels more dramatic. I propose threshold amnesia. It sounds like a condition from a fantasy novel. Beware, adventurers, for crossing the threshold into the kitchen of forgetfulness will purge your quest from your very mind. The only known cure for threshold amnesia is to return to the room where the thought was originally conceived. As you cross back over the threshold, the memory file is often magically reopened, and you have that aha, scissors moment. This is followed by the walk of shame back into the other room, keenly aware that you just spent 30 seconds of your life on a pointless round trip within your own home. The cumulative time I've spent in a state of threshold amnesia is probably weeks. I could have learned a language in that time. Instead, I've just mastered the art of looking confused in a hallway. But it's a fundamental human experience. It unites us all. From Nobel laureates to toddlers, everyone has stood in a room wondering what on earth they're doing there.
Okay, let's get even more granular. Let's talk about the tyranny of choice, but on a micro, insignificant level. You're at a streaming service. You have, at your fingertips, virtually every movie and television show ever made, an ocean of content. And you spend 45 minutes scrolling through it. Scrolling and scrolling, reading descriptions, watching trailers, and then, at the end of it all, you either rewatch an episode of a show you've already seen 6 times, or you just give up and go to bed. The sheer volume of choice leads to total inaction. This is a well-documented phenomenon known as the paradox of choice, or choice overload. When presented with too many options, our brains become overwhelmed and are actually less satisfied with the choice we eventually make, or we fail to make one at all. But again, choice overload isn't nearly dramatic enough for the sheer existential dread of the Netflix home screen. It truly is dread. What if I pick the wrong thing? What if that other movie was slightly better? I'm wasting my precious finite leisure time. The paralysis is real. For my manual, this has to be hyper-choice-induced avolition. Avolition is a real clinical term for a severe lack of motivation or initiative. Here, it's being triggered by an abundance, not a scarcity.
It sounds so severe, doesn't it? I'm sorry, I can't decide what to have for dinner. My HIA is flaring up. I've been staring at a takeaway menu for an hour and now I'm just going to eat a handful of dry cereal. That is a textbook case. The brain sees the 27 different pizza topping combinations and simply blue screens. The cognitive load of calculating the optimal choice is too great, so it defaults to the path of least resistance, which is often a suboptimal but easy choice, like cereal, or no choice at all. This explains so much about my life. My inability to pick a new toothpaste, my 10-minute deliberation over which brand of canned tomatoes to buy. I'm not indecisive, I'm a chronic sufferer of HIA. See? A diagnosis can be very liberating. It's not a personal failing, it's a quirky bit of brain wiring. Let's switch gears to something that I think everyone has, but no one admits to. An internal monologue that is, for the most part, completely insane. I'm not talking about self-talk, like, you can do this. I'm talking about the weird, random noise. For example, my brain has an internal DJ that just plays one snippet of one song over and over again for days. It's not even a song I like. Last week it was 3 lines from a commercial jingle from the 1990s. The dreaded earworm. In psychology, it's often called involuntary musical imagery, but it feels more like a hostile takeover. My own personal radio station is stuck between frequencies, playing only the most annoying possible soundbite. And there's no off switch. And the more I think, I must stop thinking about the chicken tonight jingle, the louder it gets. That's the ironic process theory, or the white bear problem. Trying not to think about something makes you think about it more. So for my manual, let's call the earworm phenomenon auditory cognitive intrusion. It has that nice, slightly sinister ring to it. It's not just a song stuck in your head, it's an intruder.
But it's not just songs. Sometimes my brain will just invent phrases. The other day I was washing dishes and my mind, completely unprompted, just thought the phrase, Jeffrey the tactical butler. And then I couldn't stop thinking about what a tactical butler would do. Does he serve tea with military precision? Does he neutralize threats with a silver platter? It's a completely useless, random, but sticky thought. What is that? It's not an earworm. It's like a thought worm. I'm calling it a spontaneous semantic creation, a brand new, often nonsensical concept that your brain generates out of the blue and then becomes fascinated with. It's a symptom of a mind at play. Your brain is bored, so it starts mashing concepts together to see what happens. Butler plus tactics equals Jeffrey. It's the brain's version of doodling. I feel like my brain is doodling constantly. It's a whole art gallery of weird doodles in there. Jeffrey the tactical butler can hang out with the spacefaring goose I thought of last month. This is why it's so hard to meditate. They tell you to empty your mind, but how can I empty my mind when Jeffrey the tactical butler is planning a covert operation to deliver the scones? The answer, I'm told, is not to empty it, but to observe the thoughts without judgment, to see Jeffrey, nod politely, and let him go on his tactical way without getting invested in his mission. Ah, see? That's where I fail. I get invested. I'm worried about him. I hope he succeeds. A classic case of over-attachment to one's own spontaneous semantic creations.
I love getting mail from you all because it proves I'm not the only one floating in this sea of weirdness. I got a great one here from a Janet in Ohio that I have to share. Janet writes, "Dear Julian, I have a problem. Whenever I am on a video call for work, I can't stop staring at my own face in the little box in the corner. I'm not vain. I don't think I look particularly good. In fact, I mostly just notice how weird my hair looks or that I'm making a strange face. But I can't look away. I'll miss what my boss is saying because I'm suddenly obsessed with the way my own eyebrows are moving. Is there a name for this digital self-fascination? Thanks, Janet.
Oh, Janet. We are all Janet. This is the scourge of the modern workplace. Before video calls, we went through our days blissfully unaware of what our listening face actually looked like. Now we have a live feed of it, and it is horrifying. I never realized I tilted my head like a confused dog until I spent a year on Zoom. Now I'm constantly trying to correct it, which just makes me look stiff and unnatural. This is a fantastic one. The phenomenon is a mixture of self-consciousness, a feedback loop, and the simple fact that our brains are wired to pay attention to human faces. And our own is the most familiar one of all. It's almost irresistible. For my manual, this condition must be called autoscopic feedback loop paralysis.
Let me break that down. Autoscopy is the experience of seeing one's own body from an outside perspective. Feedback loop is because you see yourself, you adjust, you see the adjustment, you adjust again in an endless, paralyzing cycle. You become so focused on managing your own image that you can't process the actual meeting. That is it, 100%. The paralysis is key. You're frozen by the constant stream of data about your own face. Am I smiling enough? That's too much smile. Now I look like a crazy person. Okay, neutral face. Oh God, that's my resting face? I look so angry. And all the while, your manager is talking about quarterly reports, and it's all just white noise because you're in a silent, desperate war with your own reflection.
Poor Janet. She and millions like her are suffering from ALFP. The only known cure is the Hide Self-View button, a true technological blessing. I have another letter here. This one is from Mark in London. Hey Julian, love the show. Here's one for you. I have what I call aspirational grocery syndrome. I go to the supermarket with the best of intentions. I buy kale, quinoa, organic celery, and all sorts of healthy, vibrant vegetables. I imagine the wonderful, nutritious meals I will make. Then the kale slowly wilts in the crisper drawer for 2 weeks until it becomes a green-brown sludge that I have to throw away in a cloud of shame while I eat toast for dinner. What's wrong with me?
Oh, Mark. This is not a personal failing. This is the triumph of hope over experience. You aren't buying groceries for the person you are buying them for the idealized version of yourself you wish you were. The me that gets up at 6 a.m. to do yoga and drinks green smoothies. That guy has his life together. The real me hits snooze 3 times and considers coffee a primary food group. The act of buying the kale gives you a little dopamine hit. For a moment, you are that healthy person. You've done the good deed. But the follow-through, the actual washing, chopping, and cooking of the kale, requires effort that the real you isn't prepared to expend. Aspirational grocery syndrome is pretty good, but for my catalog, it needs to sound more scientific. I think this deserves a name that captures the gap between intention and reality. Let's call it projected self-actualization through consumable goods, or, for short, PSAC. G. The core symptom is a refrigerator full of virtuous, slowly decomposing ingredients and a cupboard full of instant noodles. The feeling of guilt when you throw out the slimy cilantro is a key diagnostic marker.
I am a PSAG sufferer. My fridge is a graveyard of good intentions. There's a shriveled aubergine in there that I think has now achieved sentience. The best thing Mark can do is practice self-acceptance. Buy the groceries for the person who exists, not the idealized person who runs marathons. Maybe buy 1 bunch of kale, not a whole farm's worth. Baby steps.
This is turning into a genuine therapy session, isn't it? Okay, one final phenomenon that I need to name because it causes me low-grade stress on a daily basis. It's the simple act of walking towards someone down a long, empty hallway. I call it the corridor gauntlet. You see them from a distance. You're both still too far away to do the little smile and nod of acknowledgement. So what do you do with your face and your eyes for the 20 seconds it takes to get into greeting range? The options are all terrible. Do you stare straight ahead, pretending they don't exist until the last possible second? Do you pull out your phone and feign an urgent need to check something that absolutely could have waited? Do you look at them, then quickly look away, then look back, in a series of awkward, bird-like head movements? It's a minefield. I usually go for the phone option, but then I feel like such a cliché. Oh look, a person approaching. Time to engage my digital avoidance mechanism. It feels so unnatural. It's a fascinating social problem. We haven't developed a universal, comfortable protocol for the pre-greeting phase of a long-distance approach. This calls for a very specific diagnosis. I'm calling it proximal acknowledgement anxiety.
It's the anxiety about when to perform the acknowledgement. Too early, and you have to hold an awkward smile for 10 seconds. Too late, and you come across as rude or aloof. The window for a successful interaction is incredibly small, maybe a second and a half, and your brain is doing frantic calculations the whole time. Okay, they're at 20 feet, still too far. 15 feet, getting closer. 10 feet. This is it. Prepare for eye contact, deploy the small smile now. And if you miscalculate, the shame is profound. It can ruin your whole day. I nodded too early. They probably think I'm weird. I need to use the stairs for the rest of the week to avoid that hallway. It's a classic PAA spiral. The fear of a minor social misstep leads to major, inconvenient avoidance behaviors. Well, this has been incredibly enlightening, for me at least. I feel so much more self-aware and also so much more forgiving of my own bizarre brain. I'm not a mess. I'm a rich tapestry of fascinating, newly named conditions. I'm not forgetful. I suffer from threshold amnesia and acute thematic evaporation. I'm not awkward. I have flare-ups of PAPS and PAA.
And that's the beauty of it. Giving a name to these small, universal struggles demystifies them. It connects us. When you know that millions of other people also say you too to the waiter, you feel less like an idiot and more like a member of the human club, a club with very strange, unwritten rules. So, as we wrap up, what's the final takeaway? What should you do with this new, unofficial diagnostic manual I've created? I think you should observe. Start noticing these little glitches in yourself and others, but not with judgment, with curiosity and humor. See if you can spot a case of inanimate contempt syndrome in the wild. Diagnose your friend's hyper-choice-induced avolition. Laugh about it. Because these quirks, these so-called failures of our minds, are not bugs. They are the features that make our internal world so endlessly strange and interesting. They are the crayon drawings made by that anxious squirrel in our heads. And that squirrel is doing its best. So let's be kind to it, even when it makes us walk into a room and completely forget why we're there.